Welcome to Zido Sleepy Stories. We're thrilled to have you here for another cozy tale to spark your imagination. If you enjoy our stories, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and share this video with your friends and family. Your support helps us keep the bedtime magic alive. Now grab your blanket, get comfy, and let's dive into tonight's story. Good evening, my friend. I'm so glad you've come back to spend another night with me. This is your time now, your time to rest, to drift, and to let the world soften its grip. Whatever has happened today can stay exactly where it is, behind you. It doesn't need your attention right now. Here, in this space between wakefulness and dreams, there's nowhere to be and nothing to do. You've already done enough, so come, settle in. Close your eyes if you haven't already. And let's begin with a breath. Breathe in slowly through your nose. Feel the cool air flow in, filling your lungs. And now, exhale gently through your mouth. Just like that. Again. Inhale. Hold it softly, and exhale, letting it all go. Feel your chest rise and fall, like the calm tide of the ocean. Let your shoulders drop a little heavier with each breath. Let your jaw loosen. Let your mind unclench. As you settle deeper into your bed, know that you are safe here. This is your place of peace. And tonight, I'm going to take you on a journey, not far in miles, but deep in spirit. It's a story about love, about stillness, and about one of the greatest wonders our world has ever known. But first, let me tell you about the snow, because tonight, it's snowing softly outside our little cabin in the woods. Not the kind of snow that howls with wind, but the hush of falling stars. Tiny, glittering flakes drifting silently from the heavens, each one landing gently on the rooftop like a whispered lullaby. Inside the cabin, the fire crackles in the hearth. It gives off a warm amber glow that dances across the wooden walls. The scent of pine and cinnamon hangs in the air, and a pot of tea steams quietly on the stove. You're curled up under a thick quilt, maybe with a pillow tucked just right beneath your head. And next to you, I'm sitting in an old rocking chair, creaking ever so slightly, ready to share tonight's tale. This is the story of James and Isla. They were both wanderers, not the restless kind, but the curious kind. The kind of people who didn't just want to see the world. They wanted to feel it, taste it, understand it. They met, as many unexpected things do, on a quiet afternoon in Copenhagen. James had been visiting an art gallery that featured photographs of the far north, glaciers, starry skies, and the shimmering curtain of light known as the Borealis. And there she was, Isla, standing motionless in front of one particular photograph. The image was haunting. A ribbon of green light stretched across a pitch-black Icelandic sky. Isla was lost in it, eyes wide, lips parted ever so slightly, as if the photograph itself had breathed something into her. James watched her quietly for a moment, drawn to the stillness she carried. The quiet wonder that seemed to pour from her without effort. They struck up a conversation, as strangers sometimes do when the universe nudges them toward one another. She told him she was an illustrator, one who dreamed of painting the aurora with her own hands. He told her he was a photographer who had never seen it with his own eyes, and so began their story. What followed were 2 years of small adventures. biking through the tulip fields of the Netherlands, stargazing in the Scottish Highlands, and sipping espresso in alleyway cafes where cats roamed freely and time forgot to tick. They were both seekers of meaning, gatherers of moments, and gentle observers of life's quiet beauty. But there was one dream they hadn't yet fulfilled, a shared dream, the dream of seeing the Aurora Borealis not on a screen or in a frame, but in the sky with their own eyes. And so, in the quiet of early November, they booked 2 one-way tickets to Iceland, not to Reykjavik or the tourist-flooded south, but to the far north, where the skies are darkest and the air is sharp and still. They found a wooden cabin nestled near a frozen lake, surrounded by pine trees and endless snowy hills. And that is where they plan to wait for the light. Not just any light, but that light, the one that dances in waves across the sky, silent as breath, radiant as a dream. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Tonight, we begin not with the lights, but with the waiting. Because the beauty of this story isn't just in the moment when the aurora arrives. It's in the stillness before, the peace in the pause, the magic of anticipation. James and Isla arrived at their cabin just as the sun dipped beneath the hills. The sky turned from grey to lavender, then deepened into a velvet navy. They built a fire, unrolled their sleeping bags, and lit a candle that smelled faintly of bergamot and clove. Outside, the world was wrapped in silence. No cars, no voices, no city lights, just snow and sky and breath. That night, they didn't see the aurora, but they didn't need to, not yet. They sat side by side on the wooden porch, mugs of tea in hand, and watched the sky anyway. Because even when nothing happens, something still is. And sometimes, the most beautiful part of the journey is when you're sitting quietly, heart open, not knowing what's coming, but trusting that whatever it is, it will be worth the wait. So sleep now, dear dreamer. Let the snow fall softly over your mind. Let the warmth of the fire wrap around your heart, and in your dreams, follow James and Isla into the quiet wild. Tomorrow we'll go farther, but for now, rest. You're exactly where you're meant to be. Good night. Welcome back, friend. It's good to see you again. The fire is still burning low in the hearth. The snow is still falling, flake by flake, like tiny notes in a lullaby only the stars can hear. And here you are, right where you left off, resting, safe, and wrapped in warmth. Let's take a moment to arrive, together. Take a slow breath in, and a slower breath out. Let your thoughts, like clouds, drift away, and return to this quiet place between the moments. Tonight, I want to take you back, not to Iceland, at least not yet, but to where the story of James and Isla truly began. It was a Thursday in early spring. Copenhagen was still shaking off the last bits of winter, like a sleepy child rubbing its eyes. There was a thin mist in the air, and sunlight played hide and seek between the old copper rooftops and narrow alleyways. The city smelled of roasted coffee and damp cobblestone. James had taken the day off. He didn't really need a reason. He just felt like walking, wandering, and maybe getting lost. He wandered past antique shops with crooked signs, a record store playing jazz, and a florist arranging daffodils in metal buckets. Eventually, he stepped into a small photography exhibit tucked away on a quiet street. The door creaked as it opened, and the warm smell of old wood and ink greeted him like an old friend. It was a gallery dedicated to landscapes of the north, Arctic tundras, midnight sun, glaciers that looked like frozen waves, and of course, the northern lights. And there, in the center of the room, was Isla. She wasn't looking at James. She didn't even notice he had entered. She was too busy standing still, completely still, in front of a photograph that showed the Aurora Borealis pouring across a midnight sky in Norway. Green and violet streaks rippled above jagged mountains, like a silk scarf caught in the wind. James paused. There was something about her posture, so focused, so still, that made everything else in the room blur and soften. She had long auburn hair tucked beneath a grey wool hat, and a sketchbook clutched in one hand. Then she whispered something, just a word, soft, almost to herself. Alive. It wasn't meant for anyone else, but James heard it, and something inside him responded. He cleared his throat gently and stepped a little closer. "That's how it makes you feel too, huh?" he said. Isla turned to look at him, not startled, not annoyed, just curious, like someone opening a window to a new breeze. She smiled, and it was the kind of smile that didn't just touch the lips. It curled around the eyes and seemed to light up the entire face. "They say it's like standing beneath a living sky," she replied. James nodded, his gaze flicking between her and the photograph. "Have you seen it?" he asked. "Not yet," Isla said, turning back to the image. "But I will." That was the first time they met. No fireworks, no grand music swelling in the background. Just two people standing in front of a photograph of the night sky, sharing a single thought without saying it out loud. "I want to know the world with someone like you." They walked together after that, through a park waking up from winter, through a bakery that smelled like cinnamon and sugar, past a group of children blowing soap bubbles into the pale air. They talked like old friends who had just been waiting to meet. He told her about his camera and how he liked to photograph places that made him feel small. She told him about her watercolor paintings and how she believed every shade of blue had a secret emotion hidden inside it. They sat by the canal until the light began to dim and the city grew quieter. And neither of them wanted to say goodbye. That night, James couldn't stop thinking about her. The way she had said alive. The way she looked at the world, like it was a poem she hadn't finished reading. And Isla? She went home and drew the aurora, but this time, instead of just green and violet light, she added two tiny silhouettes standing beneath it. A man and a woman, looking up. Back in the present, our fire is still glowing, and outside the snow has started to slow. In the cabin, James and Isla are already asleep, their breaths sinking in a quiet rhythm. Tomorrow, they'll go deeper into the wilds of Iceland. But tonight, they dream of Copenhagen, of art, of the moment when two stories began to weave together beneath a painted sky. And maybe you're dreaming now too, of your own moments, quiet ones, beautiful ones, that change the course of everything without you even noticing. Sleep well, traveler. We've only just begun. Good night. Welcome back, dear one. It's a quiet night, isn't it? The fire's burning low. Its soft golden light flickers against the walls like the shadows of dancing memories. Outside, the wind is gentle, brushing against the trees like a lullaby sung by the earth itself. This is the perfect time to get cozy again, to sink back into stillness, and to let the next chapter of our journey unfold. If you're lying down, maybe pull the blanket up a little higher. Take a breath in with me and let it go. Inhale again, slowly, and exhale even slower. Feel your body growing heavier. The world is quiet now, and that means it's time to dream again. Tonight we're traveling with James and Isla through moments that aren't grand or loud, but small, soft, and filled with wonder. After that first afternoon in Copenhagen, they didn't fall in love all at once. They fell in love slowly, gently, like watching snow accumulate on a windowsill, flake by flake, like watching a flower unfurl its petals in spring. Their story became a series of little adventures. Nothing extravagant, nothing expensive. Just two people who kept saying yes to the next tiny moment, and the next, and the next. Their first trip was to the coast of Cornwall. They took a bus with squeaky windows and shared a packet of lemon drops as the English countryside rolled by. They stayed in a cottage with ivy climbing the walls and tea always on the stove. Each morning, they walked barefoot along the misty shoreline, collecting shells and laughing at how cold the sea was. Isla drew sketches in her notebook, and James tried to capture the way her hair danced in the wind when she wasn't looking. One afternoon, a rainstorm surprised them mid-hike. They ducked under a wide oak tree, soaked to the bone, teeth chattering, and Isla laughed so hard she couldn't speak. That was the first time James kissed her. Raindrops on her cheeks, mud on their boots, and nothing but wild sky above them. Later came the lavender fields of Provence. They rented an old yellow bicycle and took turns riding it down winding paths that smelled like honey and earth. James took photographs of Isla, with lavender tucked behind her ear. She painted those same scenes later in watercolor, calling them Love in Quiet Places. They wandered through the sleepy towns of northern Italy, tried gelato in every color imaginable, got lost more than once, watched street musicians play violins under flickering lamps, and one night, in a village square, Isla spun barefoot in the moonlight while James clapped along, laughing like a boy again. They never planned too far ahead. They didn't book luxury hotels or make itineraries. They simply wandered. He with his camera, she with her sketchbook. They followed instinct, curiosity, and the weather. One winter, they slept beneath the stars in the Scottish Highlands. Their breath came out in little clouds, and they wrapped themselves in 3 layers of wool. They shared stories as the fire cracked and fizzed beside them. Isla spoke of her childhood garden, and James told her about the book his mother used to read to him when storms made him anxious. It was during that night that they wrote their dream list. Not a bucket list, exactly, but a quiet promise of places they wanted to experience together someday. Not just see, feel. Isla whispered one of them into the night. I want to see the northern lights with you. James nodded. Someday, he said, pulling her closer, we'll go find them. And now, dear listener, back in the present, that someday has arrived. In their little cabin in Iceland, James and Isla are 1 day into their stay. They haven't seen the lights yet, but they aren't rushing. They've learned the joy of waiting, of watching, of noticing the magic that happens between the big moments. Tonight, they're cooking soup over a tiny stove. The air smells like rosemary and garlic. James is humming a song he doesn't remember the words to. Isla is sketching the snowy pine tree just outside the window. They are at peace, not because something spectacular is happening, but because they've built a life from noticing the spectacular in the ordinary. And maybe that's something we can take with us too, even now as you lie still, listening, breathing, drifting. There is magic here, in this pause, in this breath, in this very moment. Let it hold you. Let it soften the corners of your thoughts. Let it rock you into a gentle, deep sleep, because we still have many miles to travel. But for now, just rest. Good night. Hello again, traveler. It's good to have you back. The snow is falling more slowly tonight. Each flake seems to linger, floating lazily through the air like it has all the time in the world. And maybe it does. Maybe. We do too. Settle in now. Let your shoulders soften. Take a breath in and let it melt out through your lips like steam from a teacup. Again, inhale and exhale. That's it. Let go. Let the quiet wrap around you like your favorite blanket. And I'll tell you what happened next in James and Isla's story. You see, there comes a time in every dreamer's journey when the dream gets just close enough that it begins to feel real. For James and Isla, that moment came on a quiet Tuesday morning in early November. The cabin they had rented sat near the edge of Lake Mivan, far in the north of Iceland. The lake itself was half frozen, rimmed with black volcanic rock, and surrounded by mossy hills that wore frost like fine lace. They had already been there a full day, unpacking slowly, cooking simple meals, watching the sky. But that morning, something changed. The clouds began to thin. The wind shifted. The sun, low as it always was this time of year, peeked through, casting golden light that shimmered across the snow like glitter in a snow globe. Isla stood by the window, hands wrapped around a mug of ginger tea. James came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, and rested his chin gently on her shoulder. "Looks clear," he said. She nodded. "Tonight might be the night." They didn't say anything more. They didn't need to, because some hopes are too delicate to hold with words. Instead, they got to work. They packed a bag with wool blankets, hand warmers, a thermos of lentil stew, and a small red lantern. James double-checked his camera gear, lens, tripod, batteries. Isla tucked a pencil into her braid and slid her sketchpad into her backpack. By late afternoon, they were in their little rental car, driving toward the highlands. The roads wound like silver ribbons through the snowy hills, past steaming geothermal springs and bare, sleeping trees. They barely spoke, just pointed occasionally to a distant mountain or a herd of wild Icelandic horses, their thick manes tangled in the wind. They were chasing the light, not just the aurora itself, but the feeling of it, that sacred stillness, that ancient shimmer, that reminder that some things in this world are too beautiful to explain. Eventually, they found the place, a small hill, far from any street lamp or power line, just open sky and endless snow. They parked the car, hiked the last bit, and set up camp. No tent tonight, just sleeping bags, lantern light, and each other. As the sky darkened, James boiled water for tea over a small camping stove, while Isla curled up beside him, drawing the distant outline of the fjords in pencil. Then they waited, and waited, and waited. The stars came out slowly, like old friends arriving one by one to a midnight gathering. Orion rose in the east, his belt glinting proudly. The Milky Way stretched across the sky like a river of spilled light. They whispered softly to each other, careful not to disturb the hush around them. Still, the aurora didn't come, but there was no frustration, no rush, because chasing the light isn't really about catching it. It's about being in the place where it might appear. It's about creating stillness inside yourself so that when beauty does arrive, Your heart is quiet enough to feel it. James looked over at Isla. She was lying back on the snow, her sketchbook resting against her chest, her eyes tracing the stars. He reached out and took her hand. "You know," he said, "even if it doesn't show up, this is still the best night I can remember." She turned her head and smiled. The kind of smile that doesn't just happen on your lips, it happens in your whole body. "Then imagine how perfect it'll be," she whispered, "when it does. Here in the cabin, the fire's almost gone out. But don't worry, the warmth lingers. It always does. Outside the wind is still, the snow is deeper now, and the stars are waiting too. Sleep easy tonight. Let go of the chase. You've done enough. The light will come when it's ready, and when it does, it'll be beautiful. Good night. Hello again, gentle dreamer." The fire is soft tonight, crackling faintly in the corner, its warmth humming low and steady. Outside, the wind has hushed, and the world feels like it's paused, just for you. Take this moment to settle. Wherever you are, however you feel, know this: you are safe now, you are here, and there is nothing else you need to do. Let's take one slow, deep breath in, and one long, gentle breath out. Yes, you're doing beautifully. Now, if you're ready, let's return to our story. We left James and Isla on a snowy hill beneath a sleeping sky. They had driven through the Icelandic wilds and waited under the stars, wrapped in blankets, hearts open, not knowing if the aurora would appear. But tonight, we won't chase anything. Tonight is about the stillness, the kind that only winter can bring. After hours beneath the stars, James poured tea into 2 enamel mugs, his fingers red from the cold, but his heart warm from being there with her. They clinked mugs gently, a silent toast. No words, just a look. Isla tucked her knees to her chest and leaned into him, her sketchbook closed for now, breath rising in little clouds that disappeared into the dark. The wind whispered faintly across the snow. Every so often they heard the crunch of footsteps, not human, but reindeer perhaps, or the soft pat of an Arctic fox moving just beyond the glow of their lantern. All around them, quiet, not the kind of quiet that feels empty, but the kind that fills every corner of your soul, a sacred kind of hush. It was in this stillness that Isla began to hum. A melody James didn't recognize. Soft, slow, almost like a lullaby passed down from the mountains themselves. It had no words, just breath and tone, and a rhythm as gentle as snowfall. James closed his eyes and listened. In that moment, there was nothing more. No past to fix, no future to worry about. Only Isla's song, and the stars, and the waiting. Eventually, they laid back in the snow, heads resting side by side, eyes wide open to the heavens. "Do you think the lights will come?" James asked softly. Isla didn't answer right away. She reached for his hand, threading her fingers between his. "They already have," she said. He looked over, puzzled, but she smiled, not at him, not even at the sky, just smiled, as if she were listening to something too quiet for anyone else to hear. "You're here," she whispered. "I'm here. And the sky is listening." That was her gift, Isla. She didn't measure beauty by spectacle. She measured it by presence, by the way a moment could feel full, even when nothing seemed to be happening. And so they stayed, under that massive, unmoving sky, wrapped in layers of wool and warmth, hearts beating like little drum beats against the vast silence. They dozed off there for a while, side by side, not deeply asleep, but somewhere in between. that lovely drifting place where time forgets to keep track and thoughts become feathers. Isla's head tilted softly onto James's shoulder. He pulled the blanket higher over them both, then let his eyes close. For a while, everything was still. Back in our little cabin, the flames are now just soft embers, glowing red like the inside of a dream. And maybe you're floating there now too, in that space between breath and sleep, between story and stillness. Tonight, you don't need anything grand. You don't need answers. You don't need to do. You only need to be here, to rest, to feel the quiet. Because sometimes that's where the light begins, in the silence, in the wait, in the breath just before the wonder arrives. So close your eyes now. Let the world soften and fade and drift gently, gently into the hush of night. Good night, traveler. We're not far from the magic now. Welcome back, friend. The lantern glows low in the corner. The sky outside is a blanket of soft indigo, speckled with quiet stars. And in here, all is still. If you're lying down, let your body sink deeper into the mattress. Let your hands grow heavy, and let your mind wander gently back to our story. But first, let's breathe. A gentle breath in, and a peaceful breath out. Again, slowly. Inhale, hold, exhale. There you are. Let the hush take over. You don't need to think. You only need to feel the warmth of the story around you. Tonight, we find James and Isla still resting under that wide Icelandic sky. The stars twinkle above them, like ancient eyes watching with quiet approval. The aurora hasn't yet appeared, but neither of them seem to mind. Isla is the first to speak. Her voice is low and steady, almost like a memory coming to life. "Did I ever tell you," she asks, "about my grandfather?" James shakes his head slightly. "Only that he loved the sea." She smiles. "Oh, he did. He was a sailor his whole life. But there was one thing he loved more than the ocean." She pauses, turning her gaze to the heavens. "And that was the sky." She shifts beside James, pulling the blanket closer, and begins to tell the story the way she always heard it, wrapped in winter and wonder. Her grandfather had been just 21 the first time he saw the Northern Lights. It was 1956. He'd been stationed in northern Norway as part of a winter navigation crew. Long nights, short days, and a sky that never quite brightened. Most of the men grumbled about the cold and the dark, but not her grandfather. No, he had always believed that the world gave you gifts when you were still enough to see them. And one night, the gift arrived. He had just stepped out of the mess hall when the sky split open, not with sound, but with color. Emerald green, violet blue, crimson threads weaving across the dark, like a tapestry being stitched in real time by the universe itself. He stood there, boots frozen to the ground, mouth open, hands trembling. Not from cold, but from awe. He said it was the first time he ever felt small in the best possible way, as if the sky had reminded him, "You are part of something vast, something alive, something watching." Isla's grandfather would tell that story for the rest of his life, and every time he did, his eyes would sparkle like they were seeing it again. But the story didn't end there. The next morning, after seeing the aurora, he went to the post office in town, and there, standing at the counter, was a woman in a blue wool coat, buying a single postcard. He never forgot the way she smiled at him. And 1 week later, they shared their first cup of tea beside the frozen harbor. 2 years later, they were married, and many, many years after that, They became Isla's grandparents. James listens to Isla in silence. Her voice has softened now, drifting like smoke into the cold air. He squeezes her hand. "Do you think that's why you wanted to come here?" he asks, to see what he saw. She nods. "I think I've always carried his wonder inside me." The way he told that story, it wasn't about the science. It was about the feeling. She leans her head against James's shoulder. "I just want to feel it too." And so, they wait, not out of impatience, but out of reverence, because they know some things can't be summoned. They can only be witnessed. Back in our cozy cabin, the snow taps gently at the window pane. The wind has quieted to a whisper, and perhaps, somewhere inside you, a story is stirring too. One you've carried for a long time. One passed down from someone you loved. A story that reminds you of who you are and what you long for. Let it rise now. Let it settle over your thoughts like soft snow. Let it keep you company as you drift into rest. Because the best stories, the ones that live forever, are the ones told beneath skies full of stars, to someone you love while the world sleeps. Good night, dear one. We'll continue soon. Welcome back, my friend. It's a quiet night once again. The fire has faded into soft orange coals, the kind that hum low and steady, the kind that don't ask anything from you except to rest. So go ahead, settle in a little deeper, adjust your blanket just right, let your body sigh and your thoughts grow light. Take a long, gentle breath in and let it out slowly, like mist on a cold window. Tonight we continue with James and Isla, still resting together beneath a wide Icelandic sky. But now the cold is creeping in, and so they decide to go back. Back to the little cabin by the lake. The drive is quiet. Their boots crunch on the snow-covered hill as they make their way down to the car, lantern swaying gently in Isla's hand. Neither says much. The silence between them is full, not of things unsaid, but of things understood. They don't speak because they don't need to. The sky didn't show the lights tonight, but something else had been revealed. A story of a grandfather. A song hummed into the dark. A stillness they both held together. And somehow, that was enough. Back at the cabin, the kettle sings softly on the stovetop. Steam curls in the air like a gentle ghost, wrapping around them as they slip off their coats and scarves. The fire is lit again. The room glows in that sleepy kind of gold that only winter evenings seem to know. Outside, the lake has frozen a little more. The trees whisper as wind drifts through their branches. James places 2 mugs on the wooden table. Chamomile tea with a drizzle of honey. He hands one to Isla, who wraps her cold hands around it gratefully. They sit in silence for a while, not staring at anything in particular, just existing in the comfort of presence. Eventually, James speaks. "Do you remember," he asks, "that tiny room in Edinburgh, the one with the fireplace that didn't work?" Isla chuckles softly. "The one where we used candles for heat?" He nods. "And we had to wear 2 coats and sit in sleeping bags just to have dinner." She laughs again, this time fuller. "You made toast with a fork over the candle flame," she said. "It was terrible toast." "But it was our toast," James replies with a grin. They both laugh now, and the sound, gentle, unforced, seems to bounce softly off the wooden beams above them. The cabin feels warmer with it. Isla reaches into her bag and pulls out her sketchbook. She flips through pages, hills, cabins, streets and oceans, until she finds a fresh one. And then, With the pencil balanced lightly in her fingers, she begins to draw. James watches quietly. He loves the way she doesn't look at the paper as much as she feels it, as if her hand knows something the rest of her hasn't yet realized. A few minutes later, she turns the sketchbook around to show him. It's the cabin, this one, but not just any version. There's light glowing from the window, a fire dancing inside, and two small figures on the porch, huddled under one blanket, looking up at the stars. "Is that us?" James asks, a little touched. She nods. "Even when nothing's happening," she whispers, "I still want to remember it." James looks at the drawing again. It's not detailed, not perfect, but it's true. And in that truth, there is something sacred. Later that night, the wind dies down completely. The lake lies still. The sky is thick with stars. In the cabin, James and Isla drift into sleep. Their mugs sit empty by the hearth. The blanket covers them both, and the soft sound of breath rises and falls like waves on a distant shore. No aurora tonight, but the magic is still here. Not in the sky, but in the walls, the tea, the silence between shared laughter. Because sometimes the most beautiful parts of life aren't found in the moments we wait for. They're in the moments that wait quietly with us until we notice they were magic all along. So now, dear one, as your eyes grow heavy and your breath deepens, remember this. There is beauty in the still cabin. There is love in the quiet. And there is peace, here, now, around you. Let the calm hold you like a blanket. Let the glow of the fire fill your chest. Let your thoughts wander into dreams that ask nothing of you, except to rest. Good night, traveler. The sky is not done yet, but neither are we. Welcome back, dreamer. The night is deep now, the kind of deep where time slows, where thoughts soften, and even the stars seem to hold their breath. If you're not already lying down, go ahead, get comfortable. Let your arms rest heavy by your sides. Let your eyelids grow softer, and let your breath carry you inward, toward stillness. A slow breath in and a peaceful breath out. That's it. Now let me tell you what happened next. It was just past midnight. James stirred first, just a small shift in the darkness. Something had pulled him gently from sleep. Not a noise, not a sudden change, but a feeling, a quiet nudge from the universe. He blinked slowly, adjusting to the dim cabin light. Then he noticed it, a faint green glow dancing along the edges of the frosted window. His heart leapt quietly in his chest. He turned toward Isla, still asleep, her face tucked into the blanket, hair spilled across the pillow like spilled ink. He brushed a finger along her shoulder. "Isla," he whispered, just above the hush of the fire. "You need to see this." Her eyes fluttered open, still cloudy with sleep. "It's happening," he said softly. She sat up, dazed at first, but then her eyes caught the glow. Soft pale green light bending in the sky just beyond the glass. They moved quickly but quietly. Boots slipped on, coats thrown over pajamas, scarves looped around sleepy necks. They opened the cabin door, and the cold rushed in, crisp, clean, and full of something electric. And then they saw it. The sky was alive. Ribbons of green wove across the darkness, twisting, stretching, shimmering. It pulsed in waves, like light being played on a harp strung across the stars. Then came the violet, soft tendrils of purple that bled into the green, as if someone were painting the heavens with silk and smoke. Isla gasped. Not a loud sound, just a quiet, reverent exhale, like breath released after a lifetime of holding it. James didn't speak. He couldn't. He simply reached for her hand, and together they stepped off the porch into the snow, their eyes wide, their hearts wide open. The aurora stretched from one horizon to the other, a river of color flowing across a sea of stars. It danced, it shimmered, and it seemed to breathe with the rhythm of the earth itself. All around them, the world held still. Even the wind had paused, as if it too didn't want to miss a single moment. They stood in silence for a long while. No words were needed, because some things you don't talk through, you feel them, with your skin, with your breath, with the quiet ache in your chest that whispers, "This is real, this is now, this is everything." Isla leaned her head on James's shoulder. "I think," she whispered, "this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." He turned slightly toward her, just enough to see the reflection of the aurora dancing in her eyes. "I'm not sure what's more magical," he replied, "the sky, or the fact that I get to see it with you." They stood that way, wrapped in scarves and silence, until the aurora began to fade. The sky settled, the colors melted slowly back into night, like a curtain being drawn, or a secret being tucked gently away. And as the last flicker disappeared, Isla turned to James. "Now I understand," she said. He didn't need to ask what she meant, because he did too. Back in the cabin, the fire has warmed the room once again, and maybe your breath has grown slower, deeper. Maybe your heart, like theirs, feels a little more open. Tonight, you don't need to chase anything. You don't need to hope for wonder, because sometimes wonder finds you. When you're quiet, when you're still, when you're ready. So let the glow of the story stay with you a while longer. Let it drift into your dreams like green light over snow. Let it dance behind your closed eyelids. Let it rest in your chest like a memory you've always known. Good night, my friend. We've seen the light now, and in part 9, we find out what that light changed. Sleep well. Hello again, traveler. I hope you're warm tonight, the kind of warm that doesn't just wrap your body, but wraps your heart, like a memory, like a promise, like a soft voice whispering, "You are safe." Take a slow breath with me now, in and out. Let the tension melt out of your shoulders. Let your hands unclench. Let your thoughts grow slow and sleepy. Because tonight, we're going back to the cabin, to the quiet that comes after the miracle, after the aurora faded and the last streak of green slipped behind the horizon. James and Isla stayed outside for a few more minutes, their cheeks flushed from the cold, their hearts filled with something bigger than words. Eventually, James led her back toward the porch, where their boots had left twin prints in the snow. They stepped inside, fingers stiff, faces glowing not from the fire, but from something within. The cabin felt different now, like it had absorbed the light from the sky, and was holding it gently in its wooden bones. Isla wrapped herself in a wool blanket and curled into the chair by the hearth. She didn't speak. She just closed her eyes for a moment and breathed. James, standing across from her, watched the way the firelight danced across her face, the same face he had first seen in that Copenhagen gallery. Curious, soft, and quietly lit from within. He reached into his coat pocket, and for a second, his heart thudded with more nervousness than any moment before. In his hand was a small square box. He'd carried it through airports and mountain trails, tucked it inside backpacks and coat linings, waited for the moment that felt true. And now, he knew. James stepped forward, gently took Isla's hand and knelt in front of her. Her eyes blinked open, still dreamy, still full of stardust. But now, wide with surprise. He didn't speak right away. He didn't need to, because everything had already been said in their silences, in the way they had waited together, in the way they had watched the sky. But still, some words are worth saying out loud. "I've seen the most beautiful thing this world has to offer," he said, "and she's sitting right here." He opened the box. Inside, a simple silver ring with a small stone the color of glacier water. Isla's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes filled with tears. Not loud sobs, just soft, shimmering emotion, the kind that makes the whole world still. James smiled. "You don't have to say anything," he whispered. "I just wanted you to know. This is where my forever begins." Isla let out a breath that sounded like a sigh and a laugh all at once. "James," she said softly, "I would have married you the moment you made toast over candlelight in Edinburgh." He laughed, and she took the ring. Not because it was grand, but because it was real. She slid it onto her finger, then pulled him into a quiet embrace. No music, no cameras, no applause, just the hush of snow beyond the walls and the soft crackle of firelight. Two souls wrapped in stillness, saying yes to the next part of the story. And now, perhaps you're feeling a little quieter too. Not because the world outside has changed, but because something inside you has softened. Maybe it's the way love sounds when it isn't rushed. Maybe it's the echo of a sky painted in light. Or maybe it's the understanding that you, like James and Isla, are part of something tender and vast. So tonight, let yourself rest in that, in the memory of wonder, in the warmth of connection, in the quiet that follows awe. The best beginnings, they don't always announce themselves with noise. Sometimes they whisper, "This is it. This is your moment. This is where it begins." Close your eyes now, dear one, and let that whisper carry you into sleep. Good night. Here you are again, and I'm so glad you've stayed with me this far. This is our final chapter tonight, but not an ending, because the quiet moments we carry into sleep, they have a way of continuing on, even after the story has been told. So before we begin, let's breathe together one more time. Inhale, gently, and exhale even slower. Let your thoughts curl like smoke. Let your limbs grow heavy. Let your chest rise and fall with soft rhythm, the way the northern lights rise and fall across the sky. Tonight, we find James and Isla once again in the cabin. The fire has gone to embers. The world outside is frozen still, but something inside them is glowing. Not just the joy of the proposal, not just the memory of the aurora, something deeper, a sense of peace, a sense of arrival. They aren't planning anything tonight. No maps, no flight schedules, no long lists of things to do. Tonight, they are simply being, together, still, here. Isla lies on the rug near the fireplace, her head on a pillow, her ring catching a flicker of firelight every now and then. James lies beside her, their hands laced together, fingers woven like branches. Neither of them speaks, not because there's nothing to say, but because the silence has become its own language. The snow continues to fall, and somewhere beyond the cabin walls, the stars pulse softly like distant heartbeats. James finally whispers, "Do you think we'll ever see anything more beautiful?" Isla thinks for a moment, then turns her head to look at him, a gentle smile at her lips. "I think beauty," she says, "isn't something you chase. It's something you live inside of." He nods, his eyes warm, and that's how they fall asleep, beneath a wooden roof, beneath a northern sky, beneath the kind of love that doesn't need to prove itself. And now, dear dreamer, let your own thoughts settle. Let your heartbeat slow. Let your breath find its rhythm. You've traveled through wonder, through silence, through light. And now you've arrived. There is a cabin in the north where two souls found something sacred. But there is a cabin in your heart too. A space where stillness lives. A space where you can always return, no matter where you are. Maybe tonight, in your dreams, you'll see the aurora too, rippling green and violet, a sky alive with color and quiet joy. Maybe you'll meet James and Isla again on another trail, in another story. Or maybe you'll just feel their echo in the quiet peace that wraps around you now. Because every story that ends in love isn't really ending. It's just beginning again, in a softer way. Sleep well, traveler. The stars are watching, the fire is low, and your journey has found its quiet. Good night, and may your dreams be painted with light.